Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeon solo video. In today's installment, we will be using Mr. Defense Up himself, Zwei Gregor. For a tank identity, he is incredibly simple. All he cares about is stacking as much defense level as possible and becoming an immovable object. With how much defense level he can accrue, he is easily one of the tankiest identities in the entire game, with him easily shrugging off even the most fatal of attacks as if they were only neutral. Every single one of his skills give him more defense, so the longer a fight goes on, the more difficult it becomes for him to actually die. The most notable thing about his kit though is that if he loses a clash with his skill 1, he gains 5 times his defense level as shield. Now on paper this sounds good, but in practice it means that he needs at the bare minimum 8 defense level for it to be better than his guard skill. This requires him to either be below 50% HP or have used multiple of his other skills the turn prior. Of course, his other skills also give more defense level when they're used, but because of the requirement of a clash lose on his skill 1, it means that his other skills have to also be clashing, otherwise they will not give anything for it. Ultimately though, whether or not his skill 1 or guard provides more shield is determined by how many attacks an enemy is throwing at you. The more you can clash with beforehand, the better the skill 1 will be, otherwise you're better off just using his guard skill instead. The biggest challenge when it comes to generalist identities like Zwei Gregor is the fact that they don't work with any status effect ego gifts. This makes picking starting gifts a little difficult, so we simply take Resolution and head into the Forgotten for the first floor. For this boss we're up against G-Corp, and frankly they're pretty easy. The hardest thing is that they have slash damage, but as I've said earlier, Gregor can take fatal attacks as if they were neutral. They don't even get remotely close to staggering us, and because we also fuel Lantern perfectly, even if they did stagger us, a single use of that is more than enough to trivialize this fight. Honestly, the only reason I used it here was because I didn't really want to stall to heal.
거기까지. 그 정도인가?
칼날이 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠? 보세요, 가이드님. 다들 역경을 이겨내고
거기까지.
직원이 되었어요.
위험 요소.
공격 능력 평가? 이번엔 도움이 됐을까요?
제대로 꽂혔.
We take Lithograph for our reward and head into C for the next floor. Here we buy painkillers, not that we need it, Carmilla, blue Zippo lighter, and an extra skill 3. After that, we make it to the boss against the King Trash Crab. This fight can be a little tricky, as the only thing that really threatens identities with lots of health is true damage, that can completely ignore their gimmicks. In this case, Rupture. Right off the bat, they get incredibly close to staggering us, but thanks to both Lantern Dawn's support passive and Lithograph's healing, we can barely survive the second turn. The next turn, we're not out of the woods just yet, still barely clinging onto life. With all of the smaller crabs targeting us down, we are forced to use the Ego Lantern to heal back and survive. Thankfully though, the crabs have a tendency to fight amongst themselves. The damage we dealt the turn prior was enough for the king to turn on his subjects and defeat one of the smaller crabs for us. With most of the crabs dealt with, we now have more than enough skills to clash with everything, but instead we opt to take advantage of the king's gloom fatality and end the fight early.
공격 능력 평가? 양호?
제대로 꽂혔는데. 행보다. 옛날 것이. 내 뒤로. 거기까지.
적합한 관리법이었어요. 다행이에요.
거기까지. 위험 요소 제거. 좋다. 좋아. 계속 집중하지.
We take the twinkling scrap for our reward and head into emotional indolence for the next floor. Here we find Pendant of Nostalgia before making it to the boss against the Headless Ius.
응원하는 게 도움이 되긴 하려나?
This boss is incredibly annoying. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is an incredibly favorable matchup. With the exception of his tail attack and the bleed from his blood cannon skill, we take virtually no damage for the entire fight. The annoying part comes from the metric ton of attack power down that this stupid fish inflicts. The entire fight is basically just avoiding clashing as much as possible to try and stagger it to prevent it from stopping our clash power. Or alternatively, you could just get incredibly lucky and draw 6 skill 3s that are still capable of winning clashes despite having a ton of attack power down. The second you manage to break out of the loop and can consistently beat the fish's rolls, the fight's over, you've basically won.
늦으면 예피랑 먼저 갈 거야.
내 뒤로. 거기까지. 오, 판단은 아니었어. 내 뒤로. 거기까지.
요즘
내 뒤로.
하루 기다리는 거 못해.
내 뒤로. 거기까지. 좋다. 좋아. 계속 집중하지. 거기까지. 거기까지.
쨍그랑 부위가 조각났어.
거기까지.
계속 해도 돼. 승객이 딱콩 한 번 먹었어.
거기까지. 거기까지. 그 정도인가?
방금 공격 다음에 다른
내 뒤로. 거기까지.
공격 능력 평가 양호.
거기까지. 제대로 꽂혔네. 거기까지. 그 정도인가?
저희 직원들이 개체의 부위를 파괴했어요.
내 뒤로. 거기까지. 위험 요소 제거.
We take Broken Revolver as our reward and receive Emerald Elytra as a bonus. We head into Treadwheel Sloth for the next floor, where we buy Phantom Pain, Nebulizer, and Devil's Share. We also fuse Finifugality before heading into the boss against the Drifting Fox. This fight can be pretty annoying with all of its constant sanity drain, but more than that, we are practically weak to all of its attacks. Pretty much all of its skills are slash damage, and on top of that, we are weak to sloth damage as well. Using Lantern on the first turn remedies our sloth problem, but the constant slash damage plus the tiny bit of rupture is too much for us, and for the first time in the entire run, probably, I don't actually remember, we get staggered. Luckily though, the fox likes to occasionally take a short break, and he happens to do that exactly when we are staggered. Whether or not we are capable of surviving the next turn though is entirely up to chance. With the fox essentially nuking our sanity back down to neutral, the ability to actually win any clash is less than 50%. But of course Gregor, being the absolute giga chad that he is, decides to clutch up and win every clash despite the terrible odds. With that, the fight's basically over. Once we can clash consistently again, the sanity drain mechanics are not that much of a problem, and we can finish the fight soon after.
또 경보가 울리는 것 같아.
이 기세로 가면 우리가 질 거란 말이야. 내 뒤로.
한 번에 이렇게나. 마치
그 정도인가?
제압 개체에게 큰 피해를 준 것 같아. 기우팀의 집안다운 완벽한 공격이었어.
어때? 마음에 드시나? 내 뒤로.
방금 어떻게 하신 거죠? 깜짝
거기까지.
놀랐어요. 저희 직원들이 개체의 부위를 파괴했어요.
거기까지.
일을 훌륭하게 잘했죠? 공격 능력 평가? 양호.
거기까지. 제대로 꽂히겠어.
승리기 딱콩 한 번 먹였어.
거기까지. 좋아. 방금은 전략했습니다. 계속 밀어붙이자. 내 뒤로. 거기까지. 그 정도인가?
적합한 관리법이었어요. 다행히.
거기까지. 위험 요소. 좋다. 좋아. 계속 집중하지.
We take Ornamental Horseshoe for our reward and receive Illusory Hunt as a bonus before heading to Time Killing Time for the final floor. Here we buy Grey Coat, Fluorescent Lamp, Cigarette Holder, and an extra skill too. We also fuse 4-Leaf Clover before heading into the final boss against the Time Ripper. This fight is certainly a difficult one. Just like with the King Trash Crab, Gregor's only real weakness is true damage, and aside from Rupture, Bleed can be just as bad. The Time Ripper having Bleed in droves means that Gregor's main strength in being able to tank virtually any attack is ultimately pointless, as no matter what we tank, the Bleed will eventually catch up to us.
내 뒤로.
On top of that, Gregor doesn't have the greatest clash power in the world, and so when the Time Ripper gains his massive offense level boost, the only way to really survive is by relying on egos.
버틸 자신 있어?
Eventually though, once he starts using all of his time, and we manage to damage him a little bit, clashing is no longer something we need to rely on, as a few one-sided attacks are enough to stagger whichever part of his is using a dangerous skill.
내 뒤로. 거기까지. 위험 요소 제거.
미끼가 배고팠어.
내 뒤로.
여기서 갑자기 숨맛이.
내 뒤로. 이봐, 어떨 자신 있어?
전술의 승리네요.
오, 대장집이네. 관리자가 아니라 지휘관이었던 거 아니야? 거기까지.
공격 능력 평가.
거기까지. 그놈한텐 다른 공격 방법을
좋은 대응은 안 하는 것보다는 훨씬 낫을 거야. 다음엔 좀 더 생각.
내 뒤로. 거기까지. 거기까지. 그 정도인가?
땡구. 거기가 들어있어. 계속해도 돼. 제일 하나가 끊어졌네요. 이제 좀 수월해지겠어요.
거기까지.
공격 능력 평가? 양호.
내 뒤로. 그 정도인가? 위험 요소 제거. 최선의 방어는 역시 공격이지. 전투 방패라고 들어봤어?
And that's how I soloed Mirror Dungeon 4 hard using only Zwei Gregor. He is a very tanky identity who can quite literally be slotted into any team. I wouldn't say he's the strongest identity out there, but as long as he isn't getting inflicted with too much bleed or rupture, he can do really well. Anyway, that's it from me. Like and subscribe to not miss next time where we'll be using this character. Goodbye!